Managing multiple clients or large websites? Automate your SEO with Alley AI. Start your free trial now.
Taylor Swift is a link builder. There were rumors that she would get engaged. Our client said, let's give them a free wedding venue. And then we got them 50 links. That's digital PR.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
Hello. As you said, my name is Mel Barfield, and I am an event speaker with no voice today. So please bear with me if I need to have a medicinal sip of honey and lemon. My clicker is not clicking forth. Thank you very much. This is my keyboard, which is better than yours. I am a copywriter, and I know what you're probably thinking. A copywriter? Didn't they all die out last year? This is actual footage of me trying to survive, holding on for dear life. But as Becky mentioned, I've diversified. I also write for Freelancer magazine, and I host the Indie Business Club podcast with my friend Ben McKinney. I also offer brands tone of voice work. So at the end, when I'm shamelessly grabbing your email addresses, it'll be to send you this guide to people who can help you with your tone of voice if you decide you don't like me. So let's pop that on my little montage, my Mel montage. I also love plants, so let's put a cactus there as well. And you called it. I have a cheese reference here. I love cheese scones, and while everyone was making sourdough during lockdown, this is my masterpiece. You can have the recipe as well in exchange for your delicious data. So we'll pop that there too. One last fact about me is I absolutely love 80s and 90s films. I love a vintage classic because I am a vintage classic. Why am I telling you all this stuff? It's because I'm trying to get you to live, laugh and love me. No, that's not right. Trying to get you to know, like and trust me. Because as marketers or marketing adjacent workers, we know that all things being equal, people will choose to do business with and refer business to people they know, like and trust. And that's where verbal identity is so important. I'm going to try and convince you just how important it is today. Because every touch point that your clients or prospective customers meet you at, they're forming an idea about what you're like in their minds. And hopefully, it'll be a good one. That's what I like to phrase the invisible rapport. Though Barney's pointed out that isn't all rapport invisible. We'll just gloss over that. I've done some classic vintage graphics just to get that across. But can generative AI build that rapport with people? I know my audience, so I'm not going to stand here and slag off AI too much. But I'm going to let Rand Fishkin do it instead. He's famously said, AI knows the words that are most likely to come after other words. And what that's resulted in is AI-generated copy being a little bit behind. I'm looking forward to next year when all the ChatGPT churn is very cutesy, very demure. It just can't quite keep up with the ever-evolving living organism that is language. What it means is you end up with this really tired, repetitive sea of beige, and you end up with phrases like this. This is a very intentional font choice. Copywriting, redefined. Goodbye creativity. Hello, blah, 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 blah. Innovative solutions. No offense if you've got this on your website, I'm really sorry. And synergies. And my favorite, creativity reimagined. I was like, really? Is it though? And because everyone's using the same terminology, these same words, these same phrases, you end up with this sea of beige where people can't pick out which one's you and which one's everyone else. It's actually top left there. Whereas if you have a distinctive verbal identity that's consistent throughout everything you do, you can be a bit more jazzy and stand out a little bit more. So my goal by the end of this is to have you running away from the beige, unedited, AI-generated copy, hopefully. There will be Terminator references because I'm not over the Skynet thing. I know everyone else has moved on. I have not. So this is where your verbal identity comes in, because it can give you this strength of language instead of looking like everyone else and sounding like everyone else. And your verbal identity, some people refer to it as tone of voice. Voice and tone are two separate things, but together they form the verbal identity. Just gonna have a honey and lemon break, just a sec. So your voice is your consistent kind of personality of your brand, or dare I say personal brand, for those building one. And it's how your company or yourself, how you come across, it's your personality that's consistent throughout. What you adjust, depending on the context, the content, the situation, is the tone. So that can be described as like a graphic equalizer or a little knob that gets twisted. Sorry for saying knob. And it should be everywhere. It should be all of your copy. Every touch point should have this consistency throughout it. Because when it's consistent, and I'm talking about the 404s, the cookie notices, the keywords, across everything, the metadata. When it's consistent, it builds this mental shortcut in your prospects and customers and audiences' minds, which builds your brand, and it allows some freedom. So if you still have writers, or if you've got people who are editing AI output, it gives them the freedom to go off and just create content. And it's like a little rule book for them to follow. So going back to the know, like, and trust, I'm going to do a little test. I'm going to test you, little quiz, keep you awake. I'm going to ask you to tell me, just shout it out, which brand these examples are based on the language they're using. That one's just my little joke. You can't tell. You can't tell who that is. That's everyone and no one. No, this is the real one. So if you were looking for a page with nothing on it, you totally nailed it. Welcome, you did it. However, if you were looking for a psychotic, thirst-murdering tallboys and merch, click here. Any ideas? It is Liquid Death. So they've got the sarcastic tone of nailed it, and then some murder-related words. They call it tallboys instead of cans. Just one more for fun. Any ideas on this one? Did none of you go to uni and do English literature? This is the Royal Shakespeare Company. So there are opportunities everywhere these are quite extreme examples, but there's opportunities everywhere to have this consistency across. And 404s and cookies are two classics that people miss. It's an open goal. Miss the chance to have something a little bit different in there. So we're all about the verbal identity, building that know, like, trust. If you aren't consistent with it, though, the trust can kind of drop off and fall to the floor. And if you're really inconsistent, somebody comes and tramples on it. And if you're really, really inconsistent, a dog's going to come and piss all over it. And that happened with a very famous tweet that I will never forget, and many will never forget. Tampax. They went... This is what we'd call ill-advised. I feel like this is also around about the time everything started to go wrong. Is it a signal for the end times coming? That's we're in the pissy gutter here, because a lot of people were very, very, very cross at Tampax for using this sex joke about something that is a necessity for women and children. People, need it from an early age. So they got absolutely blasted for this. And having a really clear verbal identity, tone of voice guide, content guide, parameters, stuff we don't joke about, would have avoided this happening. Another example that I want to just leave you with about inconsistency in verbal identity, I'm going to do the classic thing of using a quote from a historical figure. If you know, you know. This example, young John Connor, I don't know if this is actually a future quote rather than a historical quote. He's on the phone to his foster mother. She's being really nice, and she's not normally really nice. So he runs it through his AI detector, which ironically is AI itself. I mean, and his suspicions were confirmed that this is not a trustworthy this is not a trustworthy voice. I said I liked 80s and 90s films. This guy, Xander Berkeley, has an amazing death in another film called Candyman. That's a spoiler, but the film came out 32 years ago, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. Another one for the film buffs. The lady that plays the foster mother was also Vasquez in Aliens. I'm going to move on. So your verbal identity needs to be strong, it needs to be protected, it needs to be championed by people who believe in language being able to build that invisible rapport, that trust. You need a defender. That's me. And when you're starting out with sorting out your tone of voice or identifying it, one of the things you can do, which is very simple, is in your teams, try and identify where on these different dimensions your voice would sit, should sit, currently sits. So you can identify where you might want to make some changes. There's, how funny are you? How serious are you? And don't do this, go, I'm just kind of in the middle. That's not helpful. You need to be decisive. Formal versus casual, respectful, irreverent, enthusiastic, matter of fact. So that's just a really basic start point if you want to start that conversation about your tone of voice and your verbal identity. Chris West goes a bit deeper in his book, Strong Language, and he talks about having 3 different levels of your verbal identity. You've got the world view, which is like looking from above, and it covers what you stand for, your values. Then you've got the personality level, which is a little bit closer, a little bit more detailed, where you've got 3 to 5 tonal values that you allocate your voice. And then the nuts and bolts, the ground level stuff, is the grammar that you might use or not. I'm a big fan of not using the grammar. And sentence length, the type of exact phrase you might use. I'll come on to some actual examples of this in a sec. See, this is why I asked for a handheld mic, so I can go. I'm fine. So looking at the worldview can actually throw up a lot of stuff that you might not have thought about for your brand. And I'll give you an example in a second of how this happened. But at this level, you're looking at like all of our industry, all of our customers, all of our peers and competitors. Do we want to stand out or fit in? And we're not saying that fitting in is bad. It might be completely appropriate. But when I was working with Confetti, they are an education provider who specialise in music and media type courses. We used Nick Parker's voice box, which is a product that you can buy and go through step by step to identify a tone of voice and a verbal identity. And as we were doing it, something kind of, as always in these kind of situations where teams take time out of their day-to-day and really think about what their business stands for, what they're doing, we identified this mismatch in what they'd previously been known for. It had previously been like, oh my God, all the cool kids go there. It's the kind of place I would have definitely gone to when I was younger. And it suddenly had become, over the years, that there'd been this shift where suddenly in their locality, it was known as somewhere the weird kids went. So through doing this exercise, we identified firstly which of these voices, this is Nick Parker's 11 primary voices, which of these voices they kind of fit into. But we also identified this problem about how they want people to feel about coming there. And we kind of decided, or they decided, that they were going to lean into it and they were going to make it somewhere that you're like proud to be weird and really lean into that element and highlight the kind of like, look at these unusual people that come here. So it can really bring out stuff that you hadn't anticipated when you first start doing the work. When you're putting together the tone of voice guide, this is from their tone of voice guide. I need to just take a moment of honey. I need my honey. That's better. This full tone of voice guide is in the magical page that if you give me your email, you can have. So the full guide to this is in there. You can look through. But you need to be ultra specific and use examples in a tone of voice guide, because otherwise it's no use to anyone. So you might put, we would say this, but we'd never say this. We'd use these words, we'd never use these words. We'd jump on trends, we'd never jump on trends. So this is an example of one of the sections. It's also about not just what kind of words you'd use, but where. So in this bit, like, well, we like metaphors, we like using some wordplay, but we don't want to do that on social media because our competitors do that. We don't want to have it there, but we want to have it in blogs and stuff. So it's an opportunity to really get really specific about how you're going to use language in different contexts. This one is from Brand New Notebook, who make websites. And it was about how much do we use emojis? How much? And that's probably a very important discussion to have at the moment, because I don't know about you, but no offense, anyone's got this on their profile. The rocket emoji has kind of, I don't know, it's been ruined a little bit, hasn't it? And in their tone of voice guide, this tone of voice guide is also in your bundle. We put in some changes because they're quite techy. There's a temptation to end up getting into this area, whatever that means. So we put that specifically, that we're not going to use this particular jargon. And again, back to confetti, we included some examples of what we wouldn't say, what's a bit better, and then like the optimal. So instead of saying confetti stays at the cutting edge of industry tech, a bit better than that is confetti uses the same cutting edge tech as industry professionals, but the real good stuff that's going to relate to their particular audience is if we get ultra specific. So you can include examples like that in a tone of voice guide to help things stay consistent. So to recap, having a really strong verbal identity creates that mental shortcut, builds your brand, gives writers or editors parameters and gives them freedom to go off and create content, and builds this classic know, like, and trust, so that hopefully this will be you. And I did say that I keep banging on about stealing your data. I'm not going to steal your data. It's just your email address. It's just your email address. But I've put together a guide of different people in the industry who are experts at creating tone of voice. It's not a quick process. It's something that can literally be 6 months in the making. And then 2 examples of actual verbal identity guides, so you can see that, like, what it looks like in reality, and these slides, and that delicious cheese scone recipe. So I managed to get to the end without my voice completely dying. So I'm just going to leave you with the obligatory QR code, and thank you so much for your time.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.